thank you also, Lauren, and the entire team over at Branchfood for this Serving Up support series. Incredibly informative and responsive and really awesome. We're excited to participate. So hey everybody, what I'll be sharing is just what Carol mentioned. Some of the things that we've learned kind of in the lead up to all of this, as well as what we learned during, and then some of the signs of the stuff that we see for a little bit of after, right? When things return to some level of normalcy. So just as Carol had mentioned, we're over here at Galley. What we've been working incredibly hard at over the years is helping food operations remove a lot of this mundane, repetitive work that they do every single day in operations. And a great deal of that work comes from messy food data, which I'll talk a little bit about in the lead up to presenting what our clients and what other clients have done and what other food operations have done in response to the global pandemic. But in essence, that clean food data and when it's organized, what it can help achieve at a food operation is absolutely incredible. As soon as you increase the food data transparency at the organization, the profitability of the food business can increase. We can find that this will also reduce stress on a culinary team, as well as in operations. And then also we've seen some results where Galley, or even just organizing food data at an organization, whether it's with us or with another service, it can contribute and help in reducing food waste. Yesterday was the Reduce Food Waste Day worldwide, so I wanted to give that a quick shout out as well. So when I mention food data, some folks in the audience, you might say, what does that mean? What we mean by messy food data are three things, really. One is recipes. There is no standard structure or standard format to a recipe in the modern data-driven era. Right? There's no standard structure to a recipe and sub-recipes. Additionally, you have the second element, which is vendor data. So where you buy your ingredients or your packaging or components, that's also incredibly messy. Prices can change constantly. Availability of ingredients, especially during these times, can change drastically from day to day or week to week. And then the third piece is your sales data. So some food operations have one channel. Some food operations and food businesses have many channels, right? Multi-channel food businesses with many different revenue centers. So even that information can be messy and hard to aggregate and combine and pull together. So what I'll share with you all are some of the tools that we see food businesses using and how they are today solving that challenging problem, right? Of those three elements that are constantly changing and moving on them, let alone during something like a crisis. There's even a step before this, right? Where a food service operator, whether they be a single unit or a caterer or a corporate caterer or consumer packaged good brand, even all the way up to the non-commercial food service providers, the largest food organizations that are out there. There's a great deal of manual work that goes into planning their prep, planning how much they need to order from a supplier, organizing and keeping track of profitability. There's a step before this, and they use gut and intuition. Incredibly, a significant amount of food businesses still do that. They're using a lot of intuition. They're also calculating food production and prep. 100% manual approach, doing it on paper and pen, right? And they're doing this every single day of operation. We come across also many food operations and food businesses that will distill this all into spreadsheets, right? And those can be spreadsheets that they themselves built or that were built alongside of a consultant or that they might have gotten from another source. But essentially, that can also bottleneck the food business. There's that food data that ends up fragmented and it's living in different places. We also come across lots of food organizations that also will search for an ERP. And for those that are familiar or unfamiliar, it's an enterprise resource planning tool. So it's a software that was built to help them do their planning. But unfortunately, many of these tools are repurposed accounting tools or inventory focused. And what ends up happening is one of two things. Many of those systems either get the data model, the food data model right, but they have a clunky interface and they're hard to use. So teams bump out of it and go back to the spreadsheets and the paper and pen, right? Exactly what we were trying to do. And then the other thing is some of them have decent interfaces, but don't understand food data, as in recipes, vendors, right? That information. They don't understand it inherently well. So the team distrusts it and they end up going back into their spreadsheets and their paper and pen or their gut and intuition. So what I'd like to share now is that that's a little bit of the landscape kind of leading up to COVID-19. And what I'd like to do now is share with you some of the journeys that our customers have made, after COVID struck. So for example, I'd love to highlight here Oside Kitchen Collaborative. You'll see a news piece here from the San Diego Union Tribune. This group were incredible, powered by Galley. What they were able to do is we put together some resources very quickly to support this industry in need. So our team assembled an incredible disaster relief playbook for shared kitchens, for commercial kitchens. And as a part of that model of success, we modeled it after what Oside Kitchen Collaborative did. They gathered together resources, neglected or unused ingredients from closed restaurants in the region, and they were delivering thousands of meals to the elderly. So an incredible effort. The only way they were able to do this is just with agile, modern technology that helped them enable that and organize it and accurately. So I believe we should have some of these resources available to folks that are on this call. I'm happy to share it as well. But anything that we can do as a team to support even one operation in delivering emergency relief food, that makes it all worth it. So that's just a little bit of information on that project. Additionally, a lot of course, granted, a lot of different food businesses have been incredibly impacted by this. One of them being the catering industry, with events and that sort of thing being canceled for the foreseeable future. One of the top caterers in Toronto. This is a Cordon Bleu led catering operation with some of the finest food. What they had to very quickly do, and this is another resource that our team assembled for the industry, we put together a pivot guide to help food companies transition to more of a delivered meals, whether it be direct to consumer food, prepared, meal prep or prepared meals, meal kits, or delivery food. We put together that resource. And what do you know? Just a few days later, one of our clients, Tobin Food by Design, what they were able to do is launch a delivered meal service, so a chef curated meal delivery service to their community. And what's really incredible here is not only does this keep their brand and their business in the minds of their customer base, but this revenue center might not go away after things return to normal, right? So as soon as they start putting on events, corporate events and weddings and you name it, I can almost guarantee that revenue center will stick around, right? They're going to continue to prepare and deliver delicious meals to their clients. Another awesome piece of news that I'd love to share here. Just a week or so ago, our team Galley participated in this. I'll share a little bit more of the story. You'll see a teammate there, Christian Almeida, helping assemble some meals together, and then also Chris Washa, our teammate in the bottom left hand corner, delivering meals. So what Lucky Bolt used to do is they used to be both have grab and go, and then did a lot of corporate catering all around our corporate headquarters in San Diego. And what ended up happening, COVID-19 happens. And a lot of these orders, a lot of these corporate catered orders, they overnight vanish. So what they were able to do with transparent and easy, clean, organized food data, they were able to quickly cost recipes and then develop a menu that they could then be ensured of its viability. And they've now pivoted to meal delivery. So Chris helped put this on, Chris Washa, alongside of Frontline Foods. And what they did is they worked together, so Lucky Bolt and Frontline Foods, to then deliver meals to healthcare workers. So this was an incredible partnership. Lucky Bolt helped launch their new revenue center, and then additionally doing good for both our community and our region. So these are some examples of what clean food data can help a food business achieve. It doesn't just have to be in a system like Galley. It can be in the formats of data that you're using. But we're so passionate about clean food data. What I'd love to share is what that approach helps with in just a minute. But before that, I do want to make these resources available to everybody on the call today. So do feel welcome to visit galleysolutions.com. You'll notice at the top of the screen, COVID-19 resources. So we have in there the disaster relief playbook for shared and commercial kitchens, as well as a guide for food brands, food businesses, commercial kitchens to pivot, whether it be meal kits, meal delivery, direct-to-consumer food. We'd be happy to share that knowledge and information with everybody. If it can help, again, like I mentioned, if it can help one business and helps them change their community or change their business or helps them get through the global pandemic, then by all means we've been successful in that. So that's entirely what's driving this outreach today, especially. And to focus in a little bit more on what clean food data can help the food business achieve, or a food operation achieve, is things like understanding exactly what to order from your supplier, right? Which can help us be more cash flow sensitive. Whether we're doing it in a system like Galley or elsewhere, remember, as a food operator, and this is critical for also reducing food waste, we want to order the right amount of ingredients every time, right? And likewise, we also want to produce our food as accurately as possible. If we overproduce food, much of it can go to waste. And hopefully we do have folks here that are also involved in reclamation of food and that sort of thing. But what's critical is for every food operation, whether it be, again, a food truck all the way up to non-commercial food service and consumer packaged goods, we all have a duty now to get as accurate as we possibly can and as dialed in with our operations as we possibly can. And what ends up happening is it unlocks all this potential. As soon as our business is able to leverage that food data, we can start learning, we can start optimizing, we can remove bottlenecks from food production and from our team. We can reduce stress on our team in the kitchen, maybe help our employees, who might now be struggling and stressed out more than ever. So it's really our duty as change makers in the industry to help provide as much as we can of our expertise, of our knowledge to the industry at large. And I think probably the best thing to leave the conversation at is I might have briefly mentioned this, but we're working with many different types of food businesses around the world. So we can consult, at least share our knowledge and give advice on food data, whether it be bottom right-hand corner, non-commercial food service provider, or top left, taster, the ghost restaurant scaling across Western Europe, or catering operations. So we're driven to supporting the industry at the highest level that we possibly can. And if it leads to a food business doing the demand-based ordering, then that's a huge win. And keeping transparent inventories at the business, highlighting allergens, nutritionals, or HACCP requirements to their staff, making their kitchen as productive and efficient as possible in lieu of now in times of much more limited resources. So that's what we're helping on our side and in the industry at large. I do look forward to answering some questions from the audience. And additionally, we are here as a resource. We're here to serve the industry. So anything that we can do to help is both our honor and also our pleasure.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the very passionate presentation. We can feel your passion throughout the presentation, and it's beautiful. It's very contagious. Regarding the resources that you shared, if you can just go back to the screen where the attendees can just download them, that would be very helpful. And we're going to turn it over to questions. If you have any questions, you're welcome to submit them via chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask them directly to Jonathan. We do have some questions that were submitted via chat, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves, you can do so. I'll give it like a couple of seconds before I ask a question from the chat.
Not all at once, everybody.
Okay, so I'll kick it off with a question that we received via chat. What types of changes are you seeing kitchens make to deal with COVID-19 and the crisis?
That's an awesome question. So a great deal of what we're seeing can be split up by vertical or by segment. So for example, we see our non-commercial food service providers, many who used to feed, let's say, offices or colleges and universities. We've seen many of them incredibly hard hit, where they've had to, of course, furlough or transition staff out of their kitchens, and then a lot of uncertainty is looming there because they're unsure. Are students going to return the next semester and that sort of thing, and will folks return to normalcy? Whereas some of our non-commercial food service providers that have contracts with factories and that sort of thing, they are cranking. Right, they're up and running, and for example, one of our clients, Heathland Hospitality Group, they feed a factory from Lubrizol, and they've been working overnight, day and night, producing hand sanitizer, for example. So we see a stark contrast there. Some very busy and some less so. On the catering side, for example, we've seen many be hit by cancellations. So they've got cancellations all leading out through the end of through the end of the summer, and some even further. Some are helping their client base reschedule, whether it be weddings and that sort of thing. So instead of just canceling events, what some folks are doing is they're pushing them out. As well as some of these catering companies are because they've got great commissary kitchens, they've got great organized kitchens. They've been able to launch the meal delivery services really easily without too much work. So those have been some really bright signals. On the direct-to-consumer side, we've seen growth, right? We've seen a lot of our consumer packaged good brands growing and facing a massive uptick in sales, which is phenomenal for them. But they have to stay organized and then keep their brand consistent, so that they retain those clients as soon as some level of normalcy returns.
Thank you, Jonathan. Another question that we received is about CPG companies and how data and Galley can, I mean, if you can provide examples on how data can help them pivot to D2C during these times, without specifically referring to specific examples, but just a general overview.
Happily, Carol. That's also an excellent question because, in fact, Lauren and I were talking about this a little bit before the call started. I might have mentioned it as well. They're seeing an uptick of growth, in experience, in when that food business experiences that, it might not be something that's ever come across their operation. So they've seen massive growth, but they have to, and now as a duty, they have to be able to stay organized, and to keep the food data clean. Many of these are facilities that have maybe a USDA individual that's monitoring the assembly of food. So it's I think now what CPG brands and consumer packaged goods brands are going to experience is a little bit more stringency on food safety, especially as the general public keep their eye on the news and see about food processing plants, and that sort of thing. So highlighting as much information to your end user or the end client, and also creating new sales channels can help create some more revenue streams for the business and help strengthen your brand and the food company.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Do we have any questions from the audience? If anyone wants to ask a question directly, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it to Jonathan.
Hi, yes, Carol, this is Kevin Devine. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan, you mentioned food safety briefly. Have you seen any trends in the food service or commercial world, and how people are adjusting to shelf life of ingredients and rotation of ingredients to ensure that they're manufacturing safe foods from either a manufacturing perspective or a supply chain perspective in terms of everything having a shelf life?
That's a phenomenal question, Kevin. And what I can share from both our experience and our knowledge on this is that there is a great deal of uncertainty, right? So to give a definite answer is really difficult. We know that shelf stable has been a really attractive benefit for food businesses, especially in a time like this. But what we're seeing across the board is this kind of a convection of the supply chain. So I don't have the strongest answer for you, and my real answer is there is still very much uncertainty with availability of SKUs, and then also a food manufacturer or food producer's approach to shelf life. But perhaps we'll know more as things develop.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan, again. We have another question that was submitted via chat. So news in the past days have exposed fundamental problems in the food supply chains where companies are finding it difficult to pivot inventories meant for the retail channel to the food service channel. What do you think is the role that Galley can play to help companies make a smoother transition? If you can elaborate on that, that would be great.
Happily. No, that's an excellent question, and I think both Kevin's question and this question are similar in that because food data has been incredibly messy overall industry wide, right, all the way from a even consumer level at the grocery chain all the way up the single unit or food truck operator to the largest food organizations on the planet. They're all struggling with that. And if there were to be a standard, right, if there were to be an industry standard data model to make vendor data as transparent as possible, to make a food business, their recipes, all that organized and transparent, I think we would emerge, or we would have entered a crisis in a lot much stronger position. It is both my belief and my understanding that a great deal of chaos could have been abated by food organizations adopting some semblance of a standard. So the food service industry in the United States alone employs the second most people behind the federal government. So we're talking about an industry that employs a great deal of Americans, and then also people around the world. But at the core of it is this messy food data has created that ripple in the industry where not only the food producers, but the food distributors, food purveyors, food producing, food manufacturers, restaurant, like everybody has now been impacted. And I think we're gonna see at least the tremors or the tidal waves for a while afterwards. So I would say the most important piece is to get as, like I was mentioning during the presentation, is to get as accurate as you possibly can, whether that be with a service like Galley or in general, dial in your food service operation as much as you possibly can. Because if you're able to do demand-based ordering, that's one less pressure that gets put on the food distributor or on the food service operator.
Okay, another question that we received is, what's the biggest hurdle that you run into when trying to illustrate the benefits of platforms like Galley to small independent restaurants?
That's this audience is full of excellent questions, so that's a really good one. It's interesting because we speak to so many different types of food businesses, and have that broad reach. Everyone has their different objections. By all means, the before COVID, many food service operators, even that were single small independent restaurant owners, they were mostly content with status quo, and so they were saying, well, I look in the walk-in and I just order this, and I don't know, I'm just going to order the same amount as I did last time, or I'm going to prep the same amount of ingredients every day, and that has been a great deal of the responses. And now food businesses are realizing they've got multiple different revenue centers. They've got delivery food. They've got different even delivery platforms that they're using. So these have been some of the objections and some of the frustrations that we see coming from operators kind of before, and now we're seeing more of a willingness. They're saying, hey, you know what? I didn't see as much of the value before, but I took for granted my sous chef or my line cook that was doing this work. They took for granted that one teammate that was writing paper and pen prep sheets every day, and now they're on limited staff. And the business doesn't run as smoothly, and there are unknown costs and unknown profitability. And now it's becoming, whoa, this is now more of a question of the viability of my business. This is like survival. And if we can give a resource to an operator that helps them not only survive, but then figure out how to keep their brand alive and keep their business running and as accurately as possible, then that's our cause.
Thanks, Jonathan. And to follow up on that, because you mentioned that you serve a broad range of customers, we've seen here in Boston lots of CPG startups partner with restaurants so that they include their offering as part of meal kits or delivered meals. I know that a lot of folks in our audience here are CPG entrepreneurs. So I was wondering if you can touch a bit upon that. I know we're almost running out of time, but if you can just touch a bit upon that and just tell us a bit more about whether these partnerships have the potential to last post-COVID, and if you have any tips for startups out there, for CPG startups, on how to engage or start these kind of partnerships with restaurants. That would be great.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Definitely, we see consumer packaged goods and like Kevin had asked, the like more shelf life stable products. We see a lot of that growing, and because they take a manufacturing approach to running their operation, they have a lot of knowledge to share and expertise to share with food businesses like restaurants or even with the caterer. And so that transfer of knowledge is going to be key and critical. So sessions very much like this that can share best practices across different segments is incredibly valuable. And And in order to drive those sort of partnerships, I recommend, I recommend checking out our resources. We've put those together. There are links to lots of different efforts that are being done around the country. So not just stuff that was powered by Galley. There's a lot of resources in there for presenting each different vertical or segment with some valuable input. So there are plenty of efforts that are being done. Remember, many people around the world are still eating 3 meals a day. So folks are eating, but the way that they're ordering their food or where they're buying their food from has changed significantly. But it has changed, but folks are still eating. And if that's the case, then there's opportunity. The way that people are buying food and ordering their ingredients and shopping has changed, but that means we need, as food service providers, we have to adapt. We're here as a resource to help you adapt, and then we can also point you in the right direction if there isn't a good fit.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. For the people out there who want to get access to these resources, these COVID-19 resources, head over to galleysolutions.com. COVID, and the tab is COVID-19 resources. We're a bit over 1:30, so if you have any further questions, please shoot us an email at info@branchfood.com, and we'll put you in touch with Jonathan and the Galley team. Thank you so much for the presentation and insights, Jonathan, and thank you all for joining and tuning in. It was very interesting. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time with Melissa Di Palma, who will give an in-depth session on pitching, specifically on the 3 common pitch presentation mistakes that entrepreneurs do and what they can do to avoid them. So please join us and spread the word. As a reminder, you can register and rewatch all the Serving Up Support series sessions on branchfood.com/servingupsupport. And you can find all the previous sessions on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe. For any feedback, please reach us at info@branchfood.com. Thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Stay safe and healthy. Thanks again, Jonathan, and goodbye.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jonathan.
everyone.
Thanks, Karen.